I wasn't even allowed to name them. We wasn't even allowed to sign the birth certificate. They made sure of that. You know what I mean? And then, they try to, that's other, they made sure we didn't sign the birth certificate. So now that I open up the door for them to say that we abandoned them.
So, Wisconsin father I chatted with last night, who says that the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services abducted his newborn child before they could even name them, and then later came to Wisconsin to take their 5-year-old child. It's a pretty heart-wrenching story, and one that's going to get some attention. I'm Greg Bishop. This is Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square. Be sure to get the podcast where you get podcasts. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and join us when we're live here with the Center Square. So we've talked about the Department of Children and Family Services multiple times on this program, including the issue of whether or not they're using interns to trigger investigations that can then lead to a parent's rights being taken away from them and a child being taken away from the parents. Well, a lot of the focus has just been on the borders of Illinois, but then got information from a advocate for children's safety and accountability with DCFS. And they told me about the story of Earl and the mother of his child having their children taken away. But the issue was Earl and the child are from Wisconsin. Here's the interview I had with Earl last night. He has a court hearing today. We'll be seeing what that court hearing entails. But here's the conversation I had with the father from Wisconsin. We're talking with a father from Wisconsin who's saying that the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services has taken 2 of his children, and he joins us now. Earl, thank you for taking time with us. This is a pretty heart-wrenching story. Give us the headline here. What is it that people need to know about what happened to you and your family?
Well, the main thing that people need to know that, well, like you had already had on your show, was talking about with Mr. Jed Davis, was about the intern situation. You know what I mean? And out of bad luck, this happened to me in my situation. I had an intern take my child from me from the hospital in one day of an investigation, not even a real investigation. And it's against everything. I got the sworn declaration of Kimberly Bates right here. You know what I mean? And on 13, it says that DCF is also is just saying that that interns that can be hired interns are individuals who meet the educational requirements for an investigator position, but do not meet the experience requirements. They are currently over, you know what I mean? So they're not experienced enough. And I believe if my situation would have been handled by a real CPS work and we was able to get due process, that we wouldn't even be in this situation.
So walk us through here. You have a 5-year-old that was taken by Illinois Department of Children and Family Services from a home in Wisconsin, and you have a newborn baby that was taken from the mother shortly after giving birth in Harvey, Illinois. What prompted these actions that happened, 6 months ago?
These actions happened 6 months ago due to a false report that was made on the mom, and like I said, the baby was born in Harvey, but the lady that made the false report had inside connections with, the county that we in it, which is McLean County, and she was able to get them to go up 128 miles to Harvey and to confiscate our kid, but it was also, the hospital also played a big part by allowing these people to manipulate them into saying something that everybody that was there on the day of birth knew wasn't true. And this outside force came in and changed everything. It changed our lives.
You're in court to deal with this issue in Illinois. You're a Wisconsin resident. Your children, at least the 5-year-old in Wisconsin, but that newborn, again, 6 months ago, 6-month-old now. You're in court trying to deal with this, and you actually have a court date Monday. Tell us about what's going on there.
Yeah, well, back to like I said about the 5-year-old, the whole situation came when once they had our children already, they got they got your children hostage. You know what I mean? And in any hostage situation, you're gonna do what they say, no matter what. No matter if you wrong, no matter if they wrong or right, you got to do what they say. And so what they do is they get you into this stipulation, which is a stipulation on facts that whether they true or not, which in our case was definitely untrue, but they still get you to agree to them by whether unknowingly, like they unknowingly agreed into this situation by an ineffective lawyer who in 7 words said, I think we can move forward to stipulate. Not saying, well, what stipulation mean, not saying the consequences of these stipulations, which in Illinois, they're using these stipulations just to terminate parent rights and to keep parents, keep your kids away from you. You know what I mean? It's been going on. The other family that was on there, Lakeith and his wife, it was in another part of Illinois, and this is Illinois. You know what I mean? Like I got sole custody of my kids, court ordered May 15 of my other 3 children that was born in Wisconsin. I got sole order, court order placement. And it's just different in Wisconsin courts than Illinois courts, because it's like Illinois courts is just bloodthirsty after taking the children from the kids and terminating the parents' rights. It's outrageous.
So just to give people a bit of a kind of a 50,000-foot view here, the mother of your child was in Illinois, gave birth to a child 6 months ago. DCFS showed up, and you're saying based off of bogus allegations, and they say that the baby tested a certain way, and they took that child, and then later on, DCFS then came and took your 5-year-old out of Wisconsin and brought them back to Illinois.
Exactly, and which is 100% illegal. They got it's unified laws called the UCCJEA laws and the Interstate Compact Placement of Children laws that all 50 states have agreed to stop anybody from taking anybody's children, anywhere without proper placement and proper procedure and following these laws. And this Illinois court is lawless. They made their own laws. They put a warrant out for a 5-year-old like he was an international criminal when they knew where he was at, when all they had to do was the most logical and sensible thing was to do a welfare check on him if they had any concerns about him, like anybody else would do. But instead, they traveled from Bloomington, Illinois, and went 200-something miles up north and abducted him and brought him back to Bloomington and put him with another family.
Now, this obviously deals with some of the issues we've been covering here in Illinois with the Department of Children and Family Services. Chief among those is the issue of an intern being used in investigations. DCFS has pushed back, saying that the definition isn't right and those critics are incorrect saying this. Tell us your knowledge about your understanding of this particular DCFS employee and their role in leading to your newborn taken, and then consequently later on your 5-year-old transferred from one state to Illinois.
Yeah, it's like I said, we was in so much shock and awe because I talked to him on the phone and I asked him, and he was posing as a child specialist, which later I found out he was an intern. But the way that he was, he didn't have no kind of compassion, no kind of care. The way I just knew, like when you're dealing with like a rookie police officer, you could like, oh, well, this guy is definitely a rookie, And he was talking to me on the phone. I asked him, I said, well, why is you taking our children? Like he said, well, he was, talking about the mom, but I'm like, I'm dad. I'm here. I got dad rights to this child just as much as she do. Why is you taking the child away from me? And he said it again. I said, no, sir, you told me why you taking the child away from her, but you're not telling me why you taking the child away from dad. And he said, because I can. And that was it, man. And I bust out in tears and I felt so helpless and I couldn't protect my child. I know I'm a fit parent. I love my children. I'm a Wisconsin court order fit parent, court order able, court order willing. But here in Illinois, this court has done nothing but falsify evidence, done villainize me in order to this day, keep my child away from me. Even though they made me under duress go through blood tests and all the stuff. I was there at conception, I was there at birth, and they still made me take blood tests and everything under duress and coercion, and they still have no good cause on why they're keeping my baby right now to this day.
Earl, obviously, there's going to be more to say about this case. Again, you have a court hearing on Monday.
Yep.
You've had 6 months without your children.
Yep.
Have you been able to talk to them?
No, I haven't seen my. I did the last time I seen my son. I did skin to skin contact. Hold on, excuse me.
Take your time. Take your time.
I did skin to skin contact with him, and that was it. That was it.
Earl, this is got to be just really difficult to discuss, especially when you're saying these are false allegations against your family here. But
yep.
What were those allegations, and what later happened in court with those allegations?
Well, like I said, with this stipulation, it's a tactic that the Illinois courts is using to separate families, which is really supposed to be used to give the parents time to get themselves together and then be reunited with their kids. What the stipulation was invented for. But the Illinois court is using them, and they've been using them since back in the day. I ran into another guy named Jerry Nicholson, who was stipulated in court in 1993, and they took all his children, for the rest of his life. And it's a lifetime contract that they get you in that nobody in their right mind would sign if they understood what it really means. And what I mean is it's perpetual. Every child you make from here on after belongs to the state of Illinois. So you're basically making babies for the state under these stipulations. And they said that my baby had a illicit drug in the system, which we know it wasn't true because we was there at the birth. Like I said, nobody there. The hospital socially cleared us. We was on our way to getting discharged. And as soon as when this intern investigator got involved, as soon as this McLean County Court got involved, everything changed. Now the baby got drugs in the system, which 6 months, in February, which was 5 months later, they withdrawn from the stipulation. So, but that was only one false thing that they withdraw for the stipulation. They wouldn't withdraw the rest of it, but they only withdraw with that, which that was the main reason. It was the snowball effect for the rest of everything else that happened.
Yeah, it was like the predicate that led to them to have further stipulations against the mother.
It was for them to act so extreme and outrageous.
What was the reason they said that they removed that one element about the illicit drug?
Because it wasn't true. It never was true. We knew it wasn't true. You know what I mean? But I knew as long as we can keep fighting them, and like I said, it's sad because everything is set up against the parent. The court is set up against the parent, the DCFS, the guardian ad litem, they all against the parent. And the only person that the parent that believed them is them themselves, especially if they innocent. You know what I mean? And once they withdrew it, which we knew wasn't a fact, they still got us in the courts.
Earl, I want to share with you what Illinois state representative, because again, we're talking with a father from Wisconsin, who has 2 children that Illinois took, and it's tied up in the courts right now. And all of this obviously impacting your family directly. You got to imagine if there's other instances where DCFS has gone to other states to take children from families. So that's something I'm going to be asking DCFS about, obviously. And getting more, trying to get reaction from them if they will respond about this particular case and others. But Jed Davis is posting this in particular about a bill he's filed. And I'll just read some of this. It says the bill requires each factual allegation in a stipulation to be listed separately and individually acknowledged by the parent. His measure also mandates written and signed attestations confirming that the parent understands each fact, agree voluntarily, and was not coerced, requires courts to confirm on the record parents understand both the facts and the legal effect of the stipulations and waivers, clearly defines the probable cause standard used in temporary custody decisions so it cannot be diluted or misrepresented, and applies the same protections to waivers of shelter care hearings, ensuring parents understand what rights they are given, what rights they are giving up, and why the rights matter. This is clearly a lot of different things in the space of due process, especially when it comes to parents' rights. What are your thoughts about Jed Davis getting involved in this?
I think he's doing a great job of trailblazing and leading the way on this whole situation with DCFS and the court system that need to be fixed. This is and honestly, it's already in law. It's in the Juvenile Act that the judge must. It's a colloquy. You know, in every situation, the judge asks you, "Do you understand? Have you been promised anything? Is it under duress? You know what I'm saying? Have anybody threatened you? You know, this is common practice in law all over America, except for Illinois. They're not doing it." He said, "I think that we can move forward to stipulate it," and the judge said, "Okay." Like it's just regular like we was talking about trading cards or something, you know. And we talking about
did you feel that you ever had the opportunity to, you know, when somebody's charged with a crime, they go to court and they have to face their accuser, and you know there's a certain level of evidence that needs to be raised for a court to even issue a warrant for an arrest or a warrant for a search. In some instances, if there's an allegation made against somebody, they need to be in court to face those allegations and the ability to respond or provide their own documentation to rebut what the allegations are. If there's exculpatory evidence that says this family, you know, evidence that makes that family innocent, the state is supposed to share that as well.
Right.
Was your family ever given that opportunity by the state of, again, a family from Wisconsin with 2 children involved here? Were you ever given that opportunity to have that due process?
Man, it's like I said, it's not funny because like they stipulated her to agree to some false facts about me. You see what I'm saying? And she wasn't even present in the courtroom yet. And she ended up getting there late, but by the time she got there, it was already predetermined, pre-decided and everything. So, and just like I said, it's a lifetime contract, you know, and nobody has signed that lifetime contract that, you know, that knew what it was.
Or that forfeits their right to have a family.
Ever.
So Earl, again, it's absolutely devastating what your family's going through, and you're sharing with it here with our news organization. Tell us what message do you want to get out there, and tell me your concerns. Yeah, obviously you're going through it right now, but what are your concerns for this particular system? What's your fear of what's happening here, especially from the state of Illinois?
Man, I like I said, I can't even explain to you the kind of fear. You know, I can't even explain to you the kind of terror that I've been living in because of the lawlessness of this court system. Like I said, I got sole custody of 3 children now. I don't know when this county gonna come up here and drive up here and take these kids from me. You know, and like I said, if I'm a court order safe parent, a court order parent in Wisconsin, and what difference do it make that y'all taking me to court in Illinois? What difference if y'all say I'm not a good parent in Illinois? I'm already court ordered where I'm from. So that just shows the more ridiculousness of this whole situation. It's like the only end that this system is trying to do is just take my children, and it's a bloodthirsty system. And they going after children, taking them from families. And not only that, you know, they took my child and put him with a Caucasian family. You know, my son think this Caucasian woman is his mother. This all that he knows. You understand what I'm saying? And just imagine the confusion and everything else that this child is trying to put together in his mind in the world, trying to deal with his world in a situation that he should never even be in.
This being interstate obviously raises a totally different element here. What's your concern of this happening with other families, and what does that mean for you? What does that spell out to you?
My concern that I know it doesn't happen to other families before. The way that this court and this system, the DCFS in Illinois did this, it was just they didn't care about no laws, they didn't care about no presidents, they didn't care about nothing. They cared about was pushing their agenda and going to get them kids and bringing them to Illinois, and just that's what they did.
Well, and I've heard you characterize it a certain way as human trafficking. Is that a concern you have of something that you worry is happening by government officials?
That's the only thing that I can compare it to. And like I said, the only thing I compare it to that in slavery is when the slaves was born, when the slaves had kids, the master was able to take the baby at birth and send them to any plantation they wanted to. And that's basically what happened to us. You know, they took my baby from birth and then sent them with a Caucasian family in another city and state. And that's ridiculous. That shouldn't happen to nobody. It really constitutes genocide in the law. You know what I mean? But you know, that's a topic for another story another day. But it's serious, man. It's real serious.
Earl, I greatly appreciate you sharing your story. I can't imagine what your family is going through right now. And you've got court Monday. I definitely want to check in with you and see how that goes and what the next steps are here, and when the next time you're going to be able to talk to your children. And talking to you on background before, you know, you've got a 5-year-old that was the second child that was taken, this newborn child that was taken at the hospital 6 months ago. When I asked what the child's name was, it was pretty heartbreaking, your answer.
Yep. Oh, the answer was that I wasn't even allowed to name them. We wasn't even allowed to sign the birth certificate. You know, they made sure of that. You know what I mean? And then, you know, they try to, you know, that's other, you know, they made sure we didn't sign the birth certificate. So now that I open up the door for them to say that we abandoned them, you know, or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's just all tactics to separate children from families, and it's ridiculous for a court system and an agency that's supposed to be for the American citizens, for the family, because the soul of America, the lining of America is its families. Any community, any city, state, town, village is the families.
Well, Earl, again, thank you so much for sharing your story, and we'll definitely follow up with you.
Okay? Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Again, that's a pretty hard story to hear, but I think important for us to share with you. And I thank Earl for connecting with me late last night to share his story ahead of his court hearing on this case. And we'll keep you updated on what happens there. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us when we're live with the Center Square.